is stablecoin and how is it different from bitcoins and cryptos right now? That is a very basic question I would like to start with.
So essentially, there's a lot of legislation being put out at the moment. We've been involved in co-writing the legislation.
Because Australian currency is no more there.
Yep. And the RBA and the industry and everybody should be mindful of the singularity of money.
And the entrepreneurs that are rising right now, and I see them, they are talking all about technology adapting. So how are you seeing that, and how is that going to help our economy?
One of the things with digital currency is there is the kind of opportunity to live your life without a bank.
Is the stablecoins taxable?
Well, I mean, the stablecoin in and of itself is not taxable.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Inspire from Reality. As promised in Inspire from Reality, we bring the real stories, the real pain, the real growth, and the real win. Always we bring somebody who shares some knowledge which has shaped them in their life, and there is something which is trending or there is something which need to be addressed. But today we bring something called money. Not real money, but stable coins. Yes, it has been a topic since 2015, and we all have been crazily growing all around, talking about crypto, about stable coins, what it is, how it is shaping the world's economy, how it is bringing the distribution of money and wealth in the market. But I'm not talking about somebody who is building a stablecoin, but I'm talking about somebody who is going to make it easier for people with different kind of stablecoins to interchange between them. But it's not my story to tell. It is the story of Ben. We'll welcome him and we'll understand more about how Australia market is growing in this economy and what kind of future we are seeing. Whatever we say, we all know stablecoin is the future. So what kind of global changes are happening around this, and how our next generation kids are going to adapt it so soon? Let's welcome Ben. Ben, welcome to my show.
Okay, thank you very much. I feel very privileged to be here.
Ben, in my show, we always start from the past. We say our past is what shaped us today. So let's start with you. Where did you grow up? What was your early career like? And how did you reach till where you are today to become somebody in fintech? So just walk us through.
Sure, yeah, it bounces around a fair bit, but I grew up on a little farm outside of a little town called Bungendore, which is just outside of Canberra, the capital. I grew up there, went to school, then went to university, to the ANU, where I studied genetics and commerce, neither of which I went on to use. I went overseas for a bit, worked in Southern California, at the University of California as a gene jockey, so splicing genes, which was really, really fun. But I didn't feel like the world of science was for me. So when I moved back to Australia, I was didn't really know what I wanted to do. And as chance kind of had it, I ended up in a web development agency, Powerland. It was just my partner at the time was working there, and I kind of went into this place, and there were all these big Mac screens and guys in cowboy hats and kind of ping pong tables, and I thought, this is pretty cool. And they were making, back then it was animated GIFs, handcrafting these animated GIFs, which we all take for granted now. But back then I thought it was really cool, and so I wanted to get into web development and did that. So I taught myself web development and kind of worked up the ranks to eventually head up technology for McCann, the global advertising agency. From there, I also kind of grew a bit, not disillusioned, but tired of sort of building websites for corporate partners and never really sure of what we're building or why we were building it. Really disconnected from the end user, which is when I left and started a business with Michelle Gilmore called Neo Service Design, which was all based around human-centered design, where instead of taking one sort of great idea and building out a website or web app or whatever it was, we'd go in and understand what the actual problems were for the end users and what the opportunities were for end users, and design apps and things that way, which was amazing. That was a real turnkey moment for me, I think, going from building something and not really knowing why to understanding the needs of people, of humans, and building things that were appropriate for them. So did a lot of work in the finance sector, completely redesigned the business banking platform for St George. Designed and prototyped the first ever Westpac iPad banking app, and then went to work for Woolworths. And at that stage, I wasn't really in payments. I was in service design, and there was a sort of new way to pay, which was sort of with your phone. You could just hit pay, and the conversation quickly turned to, well, if you can pay with your phone, why can't you do the entire shop with your phone? So that was where the scan and go shopping experience was born, and that was a really fun experience, because Scan and Go is an app that you use, but we spent a lot of time in the Woolworths flagship store at Double Bay, watching people use it. We'd build prototypes, we'd follow customers around. Was it going to be an issue if everybody was on their phones for in-aisle collisions? How does someone hold a phone and push a trolley at the same time? We spent a lot of time down there really understanding and getting it wrong quite a lot before working out how it should actually work. I remember at some stage we thought, well, pushing a trolley and holding a phone, it's a lot going on. Maybe we could give customers a lanyard, and they could attach the phone to the lanyard and shop that way.
Or a holder on the trolley.
Well, we ended up with a holder because with the lanyard that kind of made sense. I remember this as if it was yesterday. We followed the very first user with trialling this new lanyard, and they went up to the pushing the trolley, went and got something off the shelf, and they scanned the barcode, which adds the item to the shopping list on your phone, and then they went to put it in the trolley. And of course, they bent over to put it in the trolley.
Oh, yeah.
Smashed the iPhone on the side of the trolley. So lanyards were out. And we ended up working on some holders where we sort of 3D printed all sorts of different plastic holders to try and work out which was the best one. So that was really fun. And then when I left Woolworths, I was able to go to Sydney International Airport, and have a look at how people were arriving and departing, and mostly how transit customers were getting from the international terminal across to the domestic terminal. And that was also really fun. Again, it involved a lot of just watching people and seeing sort of what was going wrong and trialling lots of different things. I think we had about 50 different things to trial to try and make that trip from international to domestic or the other way around better. Some of them were very simple, like making the signs easy to read. Some are a bit more difficult, but pretty obvious once you think about it. The bus was dropping people off, was taking people from international to domestic, and obviously if you're doing that, you're probably flying somewhere else. But we were dropping them at arrivals.
Okay.
So we moved the bus stop and shaved 10 minutes off the travel time. So that was really, really interesting. And my latest adventure, which they seem to get more and more interesting, but my latest adventure is now with Australian Payments Plus, which is a business that formed about 5 years ago, and that kind of pulled together BPay, FPOS, the new payments platforms. All those businesses kind of came together to become Australian Payments Plus. And essentially, at Australian Payments Plus, I'm in a team called the Future Payments team, and we're looking at how stablecoins, what stablecoins look like, and how we might interact with them, Australians, which has been great because we're partnering up with the RBA, who are really keen to sort of understand this whole stablecoin thing, with the DFCRC, which is a sort of a research group, all the major banks, and a lot of the regulators, ASIC and APRA. So it's called Project Acacia. It was kicked off by the RBA, and there's a lot of industry participation. It's the third round, I think. The first round they had one use case that they worked on, and the second one they had about 5 use cases. And this year they've pulled together 23 different use cases, and it's really a research piece. What stablecoins look like, how they're backed, how they're used, how they're transferred. We're working on sort of 3 use cases. The first being, well, how do you get a stablecoin? If I've got fiat or regular currency, and if I want the currency back, how do I trade in my stablecoins? And the second one is with the advent of multiple stablecoins in Australia, can loop back to that later on. How might I trade my stable coins?
Wow.
But through an interchange, sort of like a scheme, like an FPOS sort of scheme or a card scheme, where there are lots of different people who all want to kind of trade with each other. There are lots of different currencies they can do it in, and it would be really difficult for me to have all the different types of stable coins dealing with a bunch of other businesses that have different stable coins. How can I just have sort of one or two stable coins but be able to effectively still trade?
Yeah.
So unlocking marketplaces is kind of the name of the game. And the third thing that we're helping to look at is an actual marketplace. How can we use stable coins to run a marketplace? And in this instance, it's a financial marketplace for wholesale businesses. So big banks and big businesses who sort of trade in term deposits and all those kind of things.
Yeah, interesting. Right? Wow. But before,
Sorry, that was a lot.
Yeah, no, before we go back to that, I want to first say something. When you told me human-centric designer, like you told me that you are a human-centric designer, now I actually understand what it means. Like understanding how people are shopping and then finding a solution is different. Like, and this gave me a very good idea. Like I would now implement this with my businesses, like smaller businesses. When I'm talking to them, I would love to see how they're doing before providing them a solution. Walking in the airport, the small things that you just told me, it needs that much of observation to see where they're putting the phone or how they're holding the phone or how they're walking, how they're looking for the signs, are they looking confused to look for the sign? It's such an important thing that understanding those behavior, maybe it has come because you have also studied genes and science, human behavior, then you know technology. It's such a good combination.
It is. I love it. I love where technology is at the moment, and I love that. We live in IRL. That we live in a world that is lo-fi, but there are sort of snippets of technology. I love that, and I love using bits of technology to create better experiences, to create amazing experiences, but not focus on the technology. I feel like the technology needs to sort of be almost invisible.
Yeah.
That's what I really love, and the technology doesn't have to be super high tech. But back to your point around human-centered design, it's super important to understand the problem space, and I think we've gotten into a very complicated world where we can overthink this stuff, and so I'll go into businesses and sort of say, well, we want to work out how to reduce the time from international to domestic, for example, and I think traditionally, people sort of look at, well, should we get faster buses? When in actual fact, if you just spend the time and follow some customers and you talk to the customers, you actually work out that the bus was dropping them off in the wrong spot. So probably the slow bus is fine, but just, and that only eventuated because we actually followed customers, followed them around. But we're able to come back and provide all these data points to businesses that they would never have occurred to them because they don't sort of follow and talk to customers. And that's what
we mean to do. We need to solve the problems, not provide them a solution that we think would solve it. Actually, it should solve their problem. Like the difference between what we are thinking as a business owner would help and what would actually help, that's the distance that you traverse, right?
Yep.
Excellent. So let's come back to the exciting topic. Like I'm very excited to have you here because this is one of the favorite topic that has come up a lot. What is stablecoin and how is it different from Bitcoins and cryptos right now? That is a very basic question I would like to start with.
It's a very good question. I'll answer it as best as I can. But essentially, there's a lot of legislation being put out at the moment. We've been involved in co-writing the legislation. That's coming out next year. And a lot of this stuff, I think, has been pushed along by what's been happening in America, the Genius Act and things like that. So there's a bit more, people are kind of paying a bit more attention. But essentially, the legislation looks at kind of two different types of tokens at the end of the day. All these things are tokens, which is a little bit of code that sits on a network of computers. And that's what blockchain sort of is. And the blockchain is the transactions that happen regarding those tokens. There are two types of tokens. And on one hand, you've got a token that is just a token. It's literally a bit of code that sits on a computer network. And that's all it is. It doesn't link to anything real world. It is just a piece of code, but it has value. And Bitcoin is a great example of that, where it doesn't, all it is a bit of code that has value. And that value increases over time because that Bitcoin actually has utility. People can use it to trade and swap and buy. So it's kind of like gold that was sort of invented by people. That's crypto. A stablecoin has an underlying asset, and in the case of stablecoin, it is the local currency. In our case, it's Australian dollars, and so every stablecoin is backed by an Australian dollar. So it can still be used to trade and swap, but people know what they're getting because it's pegged to the Australian dollar. You can swap Australian stablecoin for another Australian stablecoin. There's not really any sort of exchange rate or anything, but that's essentially the difference. So, and the stablecoins, the crypto will be regulated, and stablecoins will also be regulated, but in a slightly different way. So there will be rules around, well, if a stablecoin issuer issues out a stablecoin in exchange for currency, what do they do with that currency? And how do we make sure that currency stays safe so that when people want to turn their stablecoins back into currency, they can do that. So it's all highly regulated, and then we work with the Reserve Bank of Australia, which potentially could have their own coin, which is called central bank digital currency, CBDCs, and they could also be used in the trading process to make sure that when you're swapping coins or using coins to make a payment or receive a payment, that it's bona fide, that it's backed by the Reserve Bank, so you know that you're getting what you're getting.
So you mean to say that if there is a stable coin, it is attached, it is backed by an Australian currency. So it is like if, let's say, RBA has XX amount of Australian coins or Australian dollars, and then if 10% of them is stable coin, then it is never going to... so in the world, it won't be like we have more stable coins and less Australian dollars. It's always backed up, and so it is more stable. That's why it's stable coin.
That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head.
It's not like you're only holding some codes and it don't have any value because Australian currency is no more there.
Yep. And the RBA and the industry and everybody should be mindful of the singularity of money. If there's an Australian dollar and you create stable coins around it, you can only create one stable coin for that $1, not two. Otherwise, you've got $2. You've made money out of nothing. So the singularity of money is very important.
And the one other thing which you said, I even liked it, that you are also, like RBA and all are coming up with regularities. What good do you do when you exchange and you get that Australian currency, so that if tomorrow that exchange is going to happen, that currency is still present to be given back to the person who is holding the stable coin? That's so important, right?
It is. It gives consumers and businesses trust, which is very important in payments. It's probably the most important thing. Cryptocurrencies definitely have a purpose, and they're traded, but as I said, their utility is different. They're sort of currencies for the sake of currencies, which is very important. But stablecoins, really, if you think about a stablecoin, another way to think about it is that it's digital currency. So it really is an Australian dollar, the stablecoins, but they're digital, which means a few things. They're programmable. So if you think, I guess in the old world, you'd have escrow accounts where you could sort of tie money up in an escrow account until a certain thing happened, and then the money would be released. It's a lot easier with digital currency because these digital currencies are programmable. So you can actually, this currency can say when this whatever is met, like the goods have been delivered, I will release myself to the whichever wallet I need to go to. So that's really important, is that programmable sort of aspect.
So who makes these currencies? And we know there are few in Australian market too, if you can give their names. And who is actually one who is making, and like as you said, it's backed by a currency, so they need to put that much of deposit? Like for example, you have to put certain amount of gold earlier days to get that much of currency or that much of notes to be printed, right? For RBA, and now also it exists like that. So how do somebody make the stable coin, and who is that who is making?
Yeah.
What do they put in return to make those coins?
Yeah, really good question. It's to actually physically create a stable coin. It's very simple. You get onto the right bit of software and hit mint, and you create a stable coin. But as you point out, the beauty of the stable coin is that it has that trust because it is backed by Australian dollars, and there are various ways that can happen. The coin can be backed by money in a deposit account. Those are called deposit tokens. Strangely, they have their own name. Could be backed by money that's been put into term deposits or government bonds, and all of these kind of instruments have levels of kind of safety and security. Exactly how stablecoins should be backed, that's still something that's being worked out through legislation, which is really cool. The industry is really kind of tight-knit on this and they want to get it right, make sure they get it right because it is really important, very important for the Australian economy. So there are a few prominent players in Australia. There's Forte, who have got AUDF as a currency. They're doing fantastic things. AUDD is sort of one of the old. It's been around for a while. They're also doing great things. One of the newer players is Macropod. They're Sydney based, and they've got AUDM, and I believe just got a license for stablecoins. So there are a few businesses that are doing great things. There was an industry meetup last week, and Drew, who kind of heads up Macropod, very smart guy, was sort of agitating, I guess, everyone. The RBA was there, and we were sort of talking about stablecoins and how they should be backed, and he was sort of saying, why do you need central bank digital currency if you've got stablecoins? I don't know the answer to that, but it's a good point.
Yes,
it's a really good point. And then you get into on the back of that, you get into the sort of how money works. You've got you've got M1 and M2. I won't get into the details, but you've got commercial money and central bank money. So it's really interesting in terms of how all these things are backed. But I think the one central point is that everybody wants to make sure they do it right because these coins need to be trusted, and they will become a core part of the economy. So it needs to be done right.
I can absolutely see, as I was doing for podcast research, I saw it has come up to 30.1 billion industry in last just 1 year time.
Yeah.
That's a huge market.
Yeah, the numbers are big. The numbers are big. It's hard to track them accurately because every day there's more stable coins, more cryptos, more distributed ledgers, more blockchains that are coming onto the market. And in terms of the global economy, it's not a massive portion of the global economy by any stretch of the imagination, but it is growing very quickly, both in terms of the quantity of transactions that are going through these distributed ledgers and the amount of value that's actually stored on these distributed ledgers.
I know it will be a very naive question, but if Australian, let's say any currency which is tied up to that stable coin, if that currency falls or rises, does the value of stablecoin falls and rises accordingly?
Correct. Yes. Yep. So it's pegged to the local currency. So USDC is pegged to the US dollar. So it does rise and fall with the currency, but they don't rise and fall with each other. So although there are different currencies within the same kind of country, there's not a businesses don't need to hedge their bets. They don't need to sort of try and work out where the currency is going to go relative to each other. They're all backed one to one.
Yes,
which is really key, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is not necessarily create stablecoins for the sake of creating stablecoins, or create a stablecoin exchange for the sake of doing that. What these things do is going to enable some really cool stuff. So it's the marketplaces and the activities that people use digital currency to do things. I think that's going to be the really exciting thing that happens over the next 5 to 10 years. Are those marketplaces and the use cases that sort of sit on top of stablecoins. I think for the longest time, blockchain has kind of been a technology that's kind of looking for a problem.
Yeah.
I think there are a few technologies like that, and we talked before about how I prefer to talk to the humans and work out what the problem is before employing the technology. But I think no one can deny the importance of digital currency. So yeah, it's a really great space to be in. But the big part of that is going to be the user experience around stablecoins, because they are different. Digital currencies are different. They work differently. It's going to be a different method of how you pay. They're not like cards or they're programmable. The payments are instant as well. But just in Project Acacia, what we've found, and we're looking at a very high level with sort of institutions instead of individuals, but it can be quite confusing. There's a lot of moving parts, and instead of a bank account, you have a wallet. Instead of a login, you have a key, and you've got to keep that key safe somehow. And just and when you make the transfers, there's no wait; it is kind of instant. So there are a lot of kind of moving parts to it that are just different to how traditional currency works. And I think over the next few years, it's very exciting for a human-centered designer like myself, because the interactions that people have with these digital currencies is going to unlock a bunch of great opportunity. But there's got to be a bit of work that needs to happen to help people understand how to work with these digital currencies.
Funny thing which I remember now when I'm talking to you. So there's one of my friend called Sarah, right? She loves to tell stories. So we were in a meeting and she told a story that earlier days when people used to carry the nickels, the coins, the coppers. So let's say a trade is happening and they have to travel maybe 100 kilometers and they're doing the trades everywhere, and the nickel becomes heavier and heavier. By the time they have covered 50 kilometers or maybe 100 kilometers and they have to go to 1,000 kilometers more ahead, it becomes very heavy. So even they use horses, cart, it still becomes heavy. So they decided, so a group of merchants, they started, whenever they're going, so let's say they have covered 100 kilometers and they have got 2 bags of nickel. So what whoever is the shopkeeper, they will say, keep this 2 bags and I'll give you 100 nickels as an interest for keeping it. And whatever trade I will do ahead, I'll ask them to come and take money from you, keep giving it, and if on my way back, whatever is left, I'll take it. And that's what we do in the transaction. That's what bank is today, right? So that idea became bank interest. You store the money. While coming back, I'll take the money, I'll go out. I mean, they started becoming the merchants. Then the merchants also started doing, and slowly bank. And then internet came in and everything became digitalized. And look where we are. We are stable coin. So if we are looking at the baby form, the toddler form of stable coins now, if I say in next 10, 15 years when it becomes teenager, adult, whatever it becomes, the journey is still there. But yeah, it's exciting to see that what it is going to become.
It really is, yeah. I love that story about, whoever it was, the first person who kind of went, well, I want to trade a sheep for 4 chickens, but I sort of, the chicken guy's not here till next week and I don't want to hang around, so I'll give you my sheep and a few, whatever it is extra to sort of do the trade for me. And I think we're coming almost full circle, because if you think about a stablecoin, like I was saying before, at the end of the day, it's a token and it's backed by Australian currency, and that's what makes it a stable coin. But there are lots of other types of tokens as well. People are tokenising carbon credits, reef credits, tokenising financial products. Interestingly, the mining sector are looking at tokenising coppers and minerals and things that are still in the ground, so they can be traded even before they've been extracted from the ground. And so there are all these tokens that aren't really linked necessarily intrinsically to currency. And so I could see a world where there are these cool marketplaces where things are tokenised, and I come in and we don't even talk about necessarily stable coins or any kind of currency. Yeah. I might swap, a kilo of tin in the ground for, a couple of thousand reef credits or whatever it is. And we just, a marketplace can kind of sit outside of currency as we think about it now.
100%, and we are not talking about thousands of dollars. We're talking about millions and billions of dollars here being transaction. And as you said, it's instant transaction. That makes a huge difference. Also, when you said about the one which you are doing, the project that you are working for, and it helps with the exchange, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what exchange? And it was very interesting when I spoke to you. Like different currencies, that is their digital currencies or stable coins, how can people exchange and how it is going to help in future, like when it is released. I know it's phase 1, phase 2 is going on, phase 3 is almost here. So when the whole things comes up, how is it going to help not only Australians, like all over the world, like to exchange and to work much better, easier way?
Yeah, that's another great question. Essentially what we're working on at the moment is what we're calling a token exchange. So it allows people with various tokens to come in and sort of trade those tokens using a kind of common denominator in the middle, whatever that is. Like I said, could be backed by central bank money or it could be backed by gold. But making an exchange where you know that the value that you put in will come out somewhere else and the value will stay. So initially that will be used for swapping stablecoins. Now, this really helps when we start seeing a proliferation of not just stablecoins, but of marketplaces and of customers of those marketplaces. So if you can picture a world where there's 10 Australian stablecoins and a marketplace where people are buying and selling, potentially all of the buyers and sellers need to have all of the different stablecoin currencies depending on what the seller is wanting. Which can get pretty arduous. It's a big ask to say everybody in the marketplace needs to have on hand a bunch of different currencies. But with a token interchange, we can say, well, you just use the currency or currencies that you use and the seller can do the same. And when you go to exchange, we can make sure that the seller gets the currency that they want to receive and that the buyer can use the currency that they want to use instead of having to go and find other bits of currency. So it's as with any kind of scheme, like a card scheme. Once you get enough people involved, it makes sense to have a common exchange so that you don't have to have all these different currencies.
So it's like Wise, you know, how after Wise is in the world, travel has become like it has become the easiest thing to do. You are traveling to Europe, you don't need to think about exchanging in the airport, carrying the money and thinking about the money always in your bag. You just go with a card and you exchange then and there. It's useful. So we are looking into such style of future where we can have our stable coins. Let's say I have AUDM, right? I have that and I'm traveling somewhere and I want to book a luxury hotel. I just go there and that hotel is dealing with USSD. I just go there and I give my card, my currency, and they get it in their stablecoin. I pay in my stablecoin, and I'm done.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a big use case. Is the cross-border use case. It is for individuals because you go to exchange currency now and you take a 10, 15, 20% hit, which is big. Whereas if everybody's using digital currency, there isn't that that kind of fee on top. It's it is much cheaper. So it's a great outcome for individuals, the cross-border side of things, but also for big businesses. The amount of money that gets thrown around borders from big corporations makes the individual stuff pales into insignificance. There's a lot of money that gets sent around the world, and not that efficiently. So there's some big money to be saved for individuals, for businesses, and for Australia by digitising a lot of these currencies.
Yes. Oh, wow. Even I read somewhere it was $2.3 trillion dollars of businesses where transaction was done on stablecoin only in 2025.
Yeah.
We're in December. I can't say that we are yet to finish 2025, but yes, by this much of time, all around Australia. With so many things happening in US, with the borders being closed, economy borders being closed. It's not only physical border. So US closing the economy border, yet this much amount of business going across the globe is a huge thing, right?
It is, and it's something we would like to foster. I think Australia as a nation, I think it's very important that we do foster Australian currencies, Australian stablecoins, because if we don't, what will happen is, and people will move to digital currencies because of the instantaneous nature of them or the programmability, simply just being, not tied into a bank. There are a lot of reasons why people do and will use stablecoins. If we don't nurture and foster our local stablecoins, people will start using stablecoins from elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think at the moment, something like 98% of stablecoins, or 98% of crypto and stablecoins, sit in America. So I don't think it would be the best outcome if Australians started spending their money on US digital currency and started using US digital currency to trade. Would not be the best for the economy. So it is very important that we not only foster these stablecoin issuers, but also provide ways for that they can provide utility with their stablecoins to their end users.
Yep. So, Ben, little moving towards technology, we have always seen that Australia is always after the plateau of the technology happens, it picks up, right? And you have been in technology for so long, and you have been in fintech and all these things. With this AI and so many revolution happening all around, how is Australia as a bigger picture taking up this one, and what's your 2 cents into it? Like, how should we first adapt all this technology? As we said, we should adapt the stable coin is one picture of fintech, but there's so many other things also happening in the world. How is Australians adapting that in a very big picture when you see from multi-billionaire business kind of thing? And are we soon adapting, or are we still slowing down?
Okay, yeah, that's a very valid point. Very valid point. I feel, and we can get into AI and other technologies, but certainly in terms of blockchain, tokenization, the way it was described the other day in an industry session I was in, was that we're doing okay. So to give you an example of the token exchange that we're building at the moment, there aren't a lot of those around the world, and the particular technology provider that we've gone with, for them it's a first. So we are building world firsts, which is exciting. It's harrowing as well when I kind of, I get onto ChatGPT and sort of ask, can you explain to me a bit more about whatever it is, some kind of nuance about stablecoins, and Chat comes back and says, well, you should go and talk to the Project Acacia crew, which is us. So no, I'm asking you. So it is very new, which is great. But there's so much, as with everything, it's, the technology is kind of at the core of it, but that's not the part that slows us down. The part that slows us down in terms of adoption is things like the regulators are working really hard at this, but there's a lot of work to get done, and deciding on how should a stablecoin be backed. There are all these rules and regulations that we need to and should follow, because again, we want to deliver these products that are very trustworthy and people are really keen to use them day to day. So in terms of the technology, I think we're pretty good with our uptake of technology. It's the more broader adoption that I think in Australia we're sort of slow at, because with a lot of these things, back to the human-centered design kind of point of view, we're not really fixing a problem per se. When you look at it, it is kind of problematic, but I mean, things kind of work. It's sort of like airplanes didn't really solve any problems. People could still live and, shop and eat and go on holidays, but now people can go on holidays to Bali, which is cool. It was never really problematic, I don't think. But and I think stablecoins are sort of the same. It's once these use cases sort of start unlocking that people kind of see the real value.
Right. And really this is which I would like to address. One thing which I love about this country is they are very regulators. They regulate everything. So you are not regretting in a very long run. I mean, see, for the Australia being the first one to regulate the the screen things for the kids below 6. Below 6 you cannot have social media. Great one. Like, not only that, there are so many regulations that keeps this country so livable. That I would say that one is like, it keeps the country livable. I have traveled so many countries, and you have traveled through. We all travel, but wherever I go, I stand and in the night after a whole day of traveling, I come back and say, oh God, Sydney or Australia is so livable.
Yeah, agreed. And in terms of technology and adoption, we do have good leadership. And I think that the project that we're working on at the moment is really being spearheaded by the RBA, but there's also, we've got institutions like the CSIRO, which is just amazing. They invented Wi-Fi. I think, we kind of gloss over that kind of stuff sometimes,
Correct.
but we are at the forefront of a lot of this stuff technologically. I think we take a bit longer for the adoption part.
Make sure it is correct.
And I think that's exactly right. I think it's because we want to make sure that it's right, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But we do. I think people feel like we might lag a little bit, but I don't think from a technology perspective we lag at all. I think we're really at the forefront with a lot of this stuff.
And I want to be the first one to say that this was started me on my podcast before it was launched.
That's true,
Yes.
yeah.
When it is launched, I'll again put a note and say, I was here sitting down and we were discussing this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now tell me, let's talk about the future generation. So the future is coming now, like next 4-5 years. How do they see this stable coins in their life? And how faster the new billionaires or new businesses, those who deal with billions of the entrepreneurs, those who are rising right now, how soon are they, do you predict, I won't say it is going to be 100% prediction, but how soon do you think they're going to adapt to these? And how soon the world is adapting? And how soon do you see them adapting it? Because our next generations, the generations that is coming up, they're very, very agile to the adoption of the newer thing. And they adapt very faster than us. We took time to adapt everything. and the entrepreneurs that are rising right now, and I see them, they are talking all about technology, adapting. So how are you seeing that? And how is that going to help our economy?
That's another interesting one about Australia being sort of idiosyncratic in that kind of respect. I think one of the things with digital currency is there is the kind of opportunity to live your life without a bank. Now, there in different countries that there's different levels of I guess people wanting to do that. In Australia, it's not particularly high. The banks are run very well. The RBA makes sure of that. We live in a safe economy. We all feel the pinch of GFCs and of cost of living crises, but at the end of the day, our money's as safe. I want to say as safe as any other currency in the world. So it's why will the next generation of Australians uptake this technology? Probably less around their concern about banks or anything like that. So I do think banks have a big part to play in this. I think it'd be more around the cost savings, definitely, especially around the cross-border stuff that we talked about before. It'll also be the programmable aspect of money. I think once sort of marketplaces take off and things like micropayments as well. So paper page, which is kind of a really interesting concept. Because you kind of can't do that. If you want to read an article for 50 cents and the payment takes 30 cents, well, it kind of doesn't really work out. But if you can make that micropayment for a fraction of a cent, then it all starts to kind of make sense. So micropayments will be a very interesting one to kind of look out for. Fractionalising assets as well. I think we're moving into a world where it feels like the next generation home ownership will be a different model.
Oh, yes.
It won't necessarily just be renting or buying. I think there'll be variations of that as well. And I think being able to take an asset and sort of break it up into shares, if you like, and have multiple owners of that same asset, I think that's going to make the concept of home ownership very interesting, I think, and that'll be very relevant for the next generation, probably for our generation too, to be honest.
Yeah, with the price that's going on,
So I think, definitely, there'll definitely be adoption, and again, I think that's driven a lot by what's happening overseas. I just think that the motivations for the next generation for adopting this kind of technology will be slightly different depending on which country you're in and what your your local kind of economic situation is.
That's interesting. Yeah. Oh, no, that was really good. Now tell me, very basic thing. How do I today walk in, or not walk in ages are gone. How today, if with my phone I can buy the stable coin?
Yep. So there are what are called exchanges. There's a Melbourne-based exchange, Cointree, I think. You just log onto Cointree and kind of follow the prompts. That's how you kind of get into owning stablecoins.
That's easy. So who is, after listening to today, is going to log in and get some of the stable coins in their docket? I think I'm going to do it. I don't have one yet, but not like I don't have stable coins. I invested in Bitcoins and crypto a little bit as a family. We invested. But after talking to you, I want the stable coins to be stable in my account.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. They won't sort of have the same yield as crypto, but I think it's important for people to at least understand the technology and understand that there are different ways of doing things. And also it'll kind of expose some of the barriers to entry of this stuff as well.
Yes. One question which just popped into my brain, and after this we'll be winding up. Is the stable coins taxable?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, it suddenly came to me. I'm like, this is a very big question to ask.
Well, I mean, the stablecoin in and of itself is not taxable because it just is currency any more than a dollar coin is taxable. Income is taxable. So if you earn income and that income comes to you as a stablecoin, as with any kind of income, your income is taxable.
Yes.
So yeah, the shorter answer is it works exactly the same as
if I get a
$10,000, and it should work that way, which is actually a good thing. And I guess the other thing to point out is that blockchains are all public. They're distributed ledgers, but they are public ledgers.
Yep.
So every transaction is visible to the public. And the ATO are on top of this. They know what they're doing. It's got some smart people working there, and as well they should. And I look forward to a world where there is less, people keeping cash under their beds and not paying their fair share, and it's all digital and everyone is paying their fair share. I think that's a good thing for the economy.
Absolutely, it's important. Like tomorrow, I do a digital marketing service and I get $10,000 paid. That $10,000 income, $10,000 worth of stable coins when I get paid, it's taxable like that.
Yep.
Just simple.
If it's income,
Yep.
Absolutely.
Wow, perfect. That was really great talking to you. And I'll definitely like to have you again when you're ready and you're about to launch your token system.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it was great talking to you.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for watching it. Do subscribe us so that we can have more people visiting our studio and we can bring more knowledge to all of you and some of the inspiring stories too. Thank you.